Companies hire us to go out and find the best people for their positions, and everything that we do ought to be kind of centered around that. Because the belief that we have is that our clients and our leaders, they know how to run their business better than anybody else. Companies have spent $1 million in recruiting fees trying to scale from 100 to 300 million, 300 to 500 million. And a lot of times they'll ask, sometimes they'll ask me, they're like, hey, I think I spent too much. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, you absolutely spent too much.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we explore the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive, hands-on support for business development, performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today, we're fortunate enough to have Nick Morrison on the podcast. He's the CEO of Potere Search, where he's been pioneering a service-first, results-driven approach to executive recruiting that helps companies go beyond hiring to truly engineering their path to growth. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jules.
Hey, for sure. Thank you so much for being here. So I would love to know a little bit more about your background. How did you get started and what launched you into recruiting?
I moved to Phoenix in 2012. I just knew that I really wanted to live in Phoenix. There was something, kind of calling me to be there. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a career. I had a couple of interviews or a couple of leads anyways. And I met with a recruiting firm and I learned more about the type of work that we're doing in this industry, and I got hooked. I had two options when it came down to it when I first moved here. So I went through the interview process with a bunch of different companies, and I had two different options. I could either go do commercial real estate research, or I could do recruiting. And quite frankly, like commercial real estate research was in a cubicle. It was like a nice office, but it was in this big cubicle. And I looked and I'm like, oh, if I get promoted from this position, then I get a bigger cubicle and I get to work there for another 40, 45 hours a week. And so it just didn't sound exciting. The recruiting was, a bit of travel and getting out, and it just seemed a lot more exciting. So I did that, and it was the right choice. I feel like I was called to do this work, and I fell in love with it ever since.
Yeah, that's great. And tell me a little bit more about the origins of Potere. How did that come about?
Probably like most entrepreneurs, I thought that I could do it better, or I didn't think anybody else in the industry was doing it right. So I started this. Actually ended up working for 3 recruiting firms before I launched this one. And I remember when I joined the last one, I'm like, all right, if this doesn't work, then I'm out of the industry. Like if they had all of like the perfect marketing material and said all of the right things and had all of the right approach, and I'm like, all right, if these people aren't doing it right, then maybe it can be done, and I'll go choose a different job. And during the period of working there, it really kind of dawned on me to create this business and what we were up to. And so probably like most entrepreneurs, I thought I could do it better, and I thot the world needed what we created.
Yeah, and clearly they did, because you guys are doing well. So I know that you guys do things a little bit different at Potere. You've talked about this industry shift where what we used to do is simply focus on a pool of candidates that were right in front of you, but that's not the right move anymore. So tell me a little bit more about that shift, of going from choosing candidates to scouting the perfect fit for the right job.
Yeah, my thought is that we work for companies, right? So companies hire us to go out and find the best people for their positions, and everything that we do ought to be kind of centered around that. And what I saw in the industry before this was that it was very inventory based for the majority. Now there is like retained search that in the past was reserved for like C-suite level positions or very high level niche type of roles, and there were extra fees for that and that sort of thing. But today with the access of technology and design, we can give that level of service to everybody. And so what my thought is that we ought to use all means necessary to find everybody who's qualified for each position, screen those that are interested, and then present the best. And so, our approach comes from goal-based hiring. That's where it really all originates. So the first conversation that we have with a client that we sit down with is, what do you want to accomplish with the business? Yeah. What are you willing to risk? What's the culture that you want to build? How do you want to operate this business? And then everybody that we hire fits exactly that. So they're going to advance that mission. They're going to help you accomplish your goals. And we're the only recruiting firm that our clients work with over time. And so they do about 90% of their hiring internally. The 10% of their hiring they do externally is through us. But we even build out their talent acquisition teams such that the 90% that they hire internally is still being driven towards this goal. And so for us, it's very simple. It's like, what do you want to accomplish with the business? Okay, great. And then with each critical position, what's the ideal person for that position? And we go out and find those people, drive them to you, and then companies grow and accomplish their goals.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that service-based approach is much more comprehensive and thorough and more what a company needs because they're going to get better candidates at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'll say from the other side, I think we give great service to people as well. Like our standard is that people are in their dream jobs. And so our system, our matching system is actually dual-sided. So we find the perfect person for the company and we also find the perfect job for the person. And so that's the way that they grow together the longest. People are the most productive together. And so it's not that we're forgetting the individual, right? We actually want the person and we have a system in order to attach them to their dream job. But the belief is that they can either win together or lose together. But if we find the right company, the right person, they're going to win together. And if there's a mismatch in any way, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, and that creates a win-win-win because it creates a win for the company, it creates a win for the person, and then of course it creates a win for you. Yeah. So, how do you help your clients that you work with think less about just filling the role and then more about building the right team to hit their ambitious growth targets? Say if they want to go from $50 million to $300 million, you know?
We just talk about it. We talk about that and their goals and what they want to accomplish. What we notice that once people get in, they start talking about hiring in the position, they always focus about like qualifications, what type of like maybe even background they want. And that's only 20% of what we match on. So that's only a small portion. But companies they're really surprised. They're like, well, what do you mean we can hire a VP of marketing that'll help us grow through this length? What do you mean that we can hire a CFO that will advance our culture and get us a greater value? And so I think they've been conditioned by that because they've worked their entire career with transactional recruiters that treat them in this way. And so I think they're maybe kind of accustomed to just doing that. Hey, if we're going to find a controller, let's find somebody with a CPA, Big Four accounting experience, that sort of a thing. But what we want to talk about is like, what's the capability? What's their impact? So
Yeah.
you want to grow from 100 to 300 million in revenue. Okay, great. We need to find somebody in order to get there. What are the character traits? And so like for us talking with companies, it's easy for us to find the people that match that. It's hard for us to have the vision. And so what we do is we just get into conversation with those leaders about what their vision is. What do you want to create? How do you want to create it? And then we find people that plug into that. They think it's magic. They're like, oh my gosh, how did you find these people or how did you create it? And I'm like, that's the easy part,
Right,
finding the
right,
people
right.
and plug it. That's the easy part. We got that down. But you having the vision of what you want to do with the business, where do you want to go, and what you want to risk in order to get there, that's the hard part. So we just need to get that out of our clients and we'll match the best people to that.
Yeah. And if you're a company who's accustomed to working with a yes man who only says, sure, you need this, here it is, I got this for you, versus an actual true partner that works with them and collaborates with them and says, is this the best fit for you? Could you do better? What if this? And I think that what if, gives people pause and lets people think on it. And then, and then they can come back to you with, okay, you're right. Maybe it would be possible to do this. And I think that's where you can then go even deeper and then find the right person for the role that they weren't expecting to fill.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's a balance. We have to write that balance because the belief that we have is that our clients and our leaders, they know how to run their business better than anybody else.
Mhm.
So it's not up to us to tell them how to run their business.
Mhm.
And so if somebody wants to hire an executive assistant as opposed to a sales manager, okay, that's up to them.
Mhm.
But you're right, I'll ask the question, like, why are we hiring an executive assistant? Would we be better served if we've only got one salary, if we've only got one FTE, would we be better off hiring a sales manager instead of an executive assistant? Now, if they're still convicted in hiring an executive assistant, let's go for it. Right? Like, what
Mhm.
do I know about running your business? I know how to find the best people, right? But and so I think you're right. Like we often, or where do they work, or do we hire somebody more experienced or less experienced? We just have to ride that balance between asking questions and making sure that they've looked at all angles and they're hiring the right person. But it's not up to us to tell them what to do. We go out and execute on their vision. One of actually my favorite parts about that I ask is us doing the search.
Mhm.
We were a great example of this. Last year, we were building out the legal department for one of our clients. So you hire general counsel, then you hire like your lead paralegal, and then you hire your legal admin. So we're like building out this team. And so we get to the legal admin, and the CEO is texting me like, hey, here's what I'm looking for in a legal admin. Here's what we want. And we start talking about it, and I'm like, great. Hey, wouldn't you want your internal team to do that? Like, I'm happy to do the search, but your internal team could do that. You find somebody good, save yourself 15, 20 grand, and you'll be off. And
Yeah.
and could tell, like, I could see like the bubbles popping for a little while, ready to just come up, and they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And that's what we have to do. We do that all the time with our customers, is because they have a great internal recruiting team, a lot of them that we built. But there is a fee in working with recruiting firms. So we try and do is like limit their spend to the most critical kind of roles. So that way, like whatever dollar that they spend with us, we know that they're getting great ROI from that.
Yeah, which is very noble. And I feel like, you guys are probably separate yourself from the pack in doing that. It almost sounds like, when you're working with a financial advisor and the fiduciaries are there to say, hey, let's figure out what's in your best interest versus let's just make a whole bunch of money for me and work what's my best interests.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time, man. I hear of, CEOs and CFOs, they'll talk to me and they're like, I spent 600,000 last year in recruiting fees. I said 700,000 recruiting fees. Companies just spent $1 million in recruiting fees trying to scale from, 100 to 300 million, 300 to 500 million. And a lot of times they'll ask, sometimes they'll ask me, they're like, hey, I think I spent too much. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, you absolutely spent too much, and so we find ways of like, they should be getting their spend somewhere around like 150,000 a year,
Yeah.
even going through that scale phase. And so if you're spending any more than that, we can probably build you a great internal team, and your costs will be way less than that. It just seems like the right thing to do. Like, we don't have fiduciary responsibility, but it just seems like what you should do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of the right thing to do, we're working with a lot more enhanced technology with AI these days. And, love it or hate it, it's there. It's a part of our ecosystem. It's in pretty much everything that we do. So where do you see AI adding the most value in recruiting?
Identifying and bringing in the best of the best. And so it's easy to find applicants. You can just put up a job posting and people come in, and then you screen those applicants. And I think that's really where a lot of AI products to this point have been driven towards, is in screening applicants and scoring applicants, job applicants, people that hop on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever and apply to a job. But where I think the greatest value is going out and identifying the people that fit your criteria the most, like the best people for your business for that position, messaging them wherever they are and getting them into an interview. That's where I think AI is the best. And there are some products that are driven towards that. There are more and more that are coming up, but that's where I think you could have the best. It's like the closest thing to creating people, where you can get to, because typically, like almost every single time, whatever our clients are looking for is out there. We don't hear a lot of like crazy outlandish things where they're like, wow, that doesn't exist. No, typically it exists. You just have to like go through, sift through the haystack to find the needle in order to bring the right person to come in. But AI can do that. And machine learning does that. It's faster than ever before. We've been doing that manually, or, in the recruiting industry, people have been doing that manually for a lot of years. And so it's way faster and more efficient, a lot more cost effective for AI to do that today. So
Yeah.
that's where I think AI of the future will really help us out. It's identifying the best of the best, bringing them into the interview process. And then it's a screening both from AI as well as the human being. So we want to spend a ton of time with the people that we're interviewing or considering for a position, to watch everything, all of their mannerisms, what they say, what time they show up, what time they leave, that sort of a thing. And
Yeah.
also have AI score them as well. And then we can kind of rank them to help kind of take some of the emotion out of it, and really put in like fact-based. So there are biases that happen in hiring, right? Typically unknown, but I think what AI will do is help us like strip a lot of the biases out, will help us strip out a lot of the emotion, and will help us very much focus on the facts and hiring the best of the best for every given position. And we'll go find them and bring them in, and not just screen them.
Yeah, absolutely. In an ideal world, that is how AI will work. So hopefully we can all collaborate towards a bit more of a utopian society in which AI would also have inclusivity,
Yeah, definitely. It all depends on, I guess it depends on how you set it up,
Yeah.
right? Like the first class action lawsuit that came against AI or is involved in AI was somebody that set up their AI program to discriminate based upon age.
I
It was
remember
screen,
that. Yeah.
you're screening out graduation dates, and that's how somebody figured it out. And so, I guess it could advance your biases, but if as long as we set them up in order to be very factual about like, this is exactly who we're looking for, then I think it could help out a lot.
Sure. And, it's a tool at the end of the day. If you put a sword into the hands of a good person, they'll do good things with it. If you put a sword into the hands of a bad person, they're going to do bad things with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you've talked a lot about aligning recruiting with a company's end goal, right? Let's flip that and talk about your own company, Potere. How have you been able to scale your own company, having access to some of these best candidates so that you can grow?
It's really been a matter of focus for us. And
Mhm,
so it took 5 years in order to figure out like a real plan. Like,
mhm,
who are we going to be? Where are we going to go? The first 5 years were like a lot of hope, and we want to build something big, and we know the impact that we want to have, but it wasn't necessarily having a direct impact. And so, 2.5 years ago, we really focused on scale ups. So
mhm.
that's when we decided that we're going to focus on scale ups that are doing good work in the world, and we're going to help them scale from 50 to 500 million.
Yeah.
We don't see other recruiting firms focused on that. We see other recruiting firms that are focused on inventory, like, hey, I'll find 10 IT people and then we'll sling them around and get them hired, or accounting or marketing or whatever.
Yeah.
And so what we really wanted to focus on was helping these companies grow. And part of it came from what did we do over the past 5 years that we got really excited about. And there were some cases over the 5 years before that where we helped out one company with a project and we really enjoyed it. But it was like it was one project and that was it. But what we really enjoyed when we look back were to see these companies that we had grown from 30 to 400 million,
Mhm.
where we've created generational wealth with some of the executives that are inside of there, where
Yeah.
we've helped transform their industry. There is a company that we worked with. We helped them start from almost from scratch, scaled and sold to the largest player in their industry for a great multiple, and it was a good deal for everybody. And so we looked at that and we're like, this is awesome, right? So we're having a real impact because we're building out the entire corporate team, and then sometimes building out a huge chunk of these businesses, and we're helping them start to finish.
Mhm.
So I'm like, this is the best. We're getting people inside of these businesses that tell us year over year. Some of these people work inside of these businesses for 5 or 6 years, right through the whole growth cycle. They're
Mhm.
like, this has been the most fun I've ever had in my career. Maybe some people tell us the most fun they've ever had in their life.
Yeah.
They're like, this is my dream job. And we ask, and it's not just like, oh, the first weekend where like everybody's taking me to lunch and celebrating me. That was my dream job. No, we're talking like a year afterwards. I just talked to somebody that celebrated their 5 year anniversary, and they're like, no, I'm in my dream job. I love it.
Oh,
It's not like every day is perfect, right?
yeah.
But they're like, no, this is fun. I love the journey. My family enjoys it. It works out well for my life. My career's growing. And by that time, we see them have a few promotions, maybe even some exits along the way if they get like recapitalized or a new private equity firm comes in, they're cashing
Mhm.
checks. And so I'm like, that's super fun to see these people do well. The executives love it because the CEO, the founder, the CFO, whoever we're working with at the top, they're like, this is the best experience I've had. It's
Yeah.
easy hiring people, and all the people I hire are great. It's my life's easier. It's never been easier to scale a company. And then at the end afterwards, like we talked to these owners that sold their company and they've got generational wealth that they created out of it. I'm like, we were a part of that. Like
Yeah.
we got to help be that. And we're very clear that we're not doing that. We're not transforming industries. We're not
Yeah.
growing these companies, but we provide the people. We can give this service to like make your life easier, give you all of the best people, and help you execute the vision. So I'm looking back on a few of those stories and I'm like, that's what we want to do. We want to
Yeah.
do that for as many companies as possible over. And so we made the dedication that day. Before that, we were, we were doing HR services, two SaaS platforms that were out in the marketplace. We were selling and we're doing all these sort of things. We're like, no, this is what we want to do. This is what we're called to do. This is the impact that we're meant to have on the world. And ever since that declaration of focusing on that, it's been so much greater. We've grown a ton. I think we've tripled the size of the business since then and are continuing to grow. So riches are in the niches, I think, is one thing that was told to me at that time.
Right.
And then since then, everything's easier. We know the conferences to go to, we know who to market to. We can be hyper focused on like our marketing spend and where our efforts are, that we know we're marketing to the right people, the people that we want to work with. So anyway, sorry if that was a little bit long winded, but that's what we really wanted to do, is just this focus on like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's the impact that we want to have. And that's allowed us to kind of grow and scale. And now this year we're figuring out our marketing and sales.
Mhm.
Last year was really about delivery and honing in our delivery component. The first half of this year was a lot about marketing, and the back half will be about sales. And so I think once we've figured those out, next year will be operations. So next year will be like HR and accounting and all of the rest of the good stuff. But I think once we've figured out those components, it's just a mathematical equation at that point, and the impact that we can have is exponential.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm also seeing, and this is tricky. It's such a fine counterbalance because what you're coming to this industry with is ethics, which not everybody has. Even Potere itself, it's Italian for empower, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, finding the perfect fit and getting that person the dream job so that they work somewhere for 5 years means that you actually have less engagements with that company, only in the sense that once you've filled that position and it's filled, versus say another recruiter who's going to just churn and burn, get you a great fit for 6 months, possibly a year, and then get you a new person in a year. But there are certain elements, something that you mentioned earlier as well. For instance, talking to these CEOs and saying, hey, actually, you probably shouldn't be spending $750,000 a year on recruiting fees. You could be spending, $150,000, and, we'll just get you an internal team and they can take care of some of these things for you so you can save money. So in constantly being what I would say is being a good person, being ethical, in some way, you put yourself out of business a little bit. So I guess talk to me a little bit about that fine balance between, number one, you do want to get rehired by companies because you're being fantastic. You're being a true collaborative partner. You do have their best interests in mind. And on the other hand, you also want to continue to grow. You want to continue to provide hires, because if you only provided the absolute best hires for these companies and they never needed to hire again, obviously, unless they needed to grow, creates less work for you. So that to me seems like a bit of a conundrum. So maybe walk me through what that's like, constantly finding new work for yourself in an industry where you are intentionally creating somewhat less work for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely understand the theory. We're actually creating more work for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds counterintuitive because I'm like, hey, maybe you want to do that legal admin search internally. Hey, maybe you want to do, there was one last week where it was a financial analyst. I'm like, hey, more than happy to do it for you, but you could do it internally, save yourself some money. Those companies will, I think that was the same company. Anyways, they'll work with us forever because they know that we have their best interests in mind. We're taking care of their company. And guess what? I know that they look at our budget. And it goes for all of our clients. Or anyways, they review their budget at least every quarter, probably every month, right? And they go through, and there's this line item that says recruiting
Yeah.
or recruiting agency. I haven't actually seen their full P&L, but I know that a lot of our clients, there's a line item that's us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're the only recruiting firm they work with. So there's this one, and we know if that spend gets to 250, 300, they're going to find alternatives because there's somebody in that room that's reviewing the budget. That's way too much money. And so what most recruiting firms do, they don't realize that. They're not even thinking of that. What they think of is in the short term is like, oh my gosh, I can hire this legal admin, make 15 grand and move on. Oh my gosh, I can hire this financial analyst, make 15 grand and move on. But then they've got to go find another client and find another client and burn another client, burn another client, and like continue on. For me, I'd rather do a good job for this one company and then they work with us year over year. Our clients spend $150,000 a year with us over the course of 5 years. So we want to work with them through the whole cycle and get that. A lot of other recruiting firms are like churn and burn of clients, right? But if somebody's at a company for 120 days and then leaves for 6 months and then leaves, and that continues to happen from us or from any firm, we're going to get let go. We're not going to work with them for a long time. And so I think it's actually in our best interest in order to work with them. It speeds up our process as well. If we work with a company for 5 years, we know where they've been, where they are, and where they're going. Most people just text us. So they just shoot a text like, hey man, I'm in a board meeting. I need a new marketing director. And I'm like, okay, great. What is where do you want this person to grow to? What are the impact expectations? What is the compensation? Great. We'll have your executive assistant set up interviews next week. Okay, cool. For a lot of and that's so much more efficient. So we don't have to take like a half day to go over to their office to like interview everybody, to talk to everybody. And it's super disruptive for that other company too, by the way. So they've got to take all of their executives out of production for the day and all these people. And we're like, no, we already know everybody. We just met people, we've taken upon ourselves to meet people along the way. So I think we're actually our CLTV, our customer lifetime value, is higher than probably anybody else in the industry. I think our margins per client and per hire are probably as healthy, if not healthier, than maybe any other business in the industry or most. Certainly well above average. So I think from those two metrics, we're actually doing really pretty well, and it feels dang good. Like honestly, I would do it even if it didn't grow. Like if the option was like, hey, burn companies and burn people and make a ton of money, or do a good service and make less and stay stagnant, I'd stay stagnant. It's not worth it to me in order to burn companies and burn people to grow. But I actually think the way that we're doing it will grow faster, more efficient, and will have a greater impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a different kind of success metric. And I fully agree with that as well, is if you are out there being a good person and doing a good job, and I don't mean good at what you do, but actually doing good for the world, you're going to have more job satisfaction. You are going to enjoy what you do more, and you're going to have more lasting power than the next person over. Because when you're doing the right thing, like, your heart's in the right place, you're simply going to show up to work every day excited to help more people. Now, what I'm curious about is it sounds like you do great work. It sounds like, people, you have this high customer lifetime value because they want to stick with you. And I get that. And I'm going to relate it to like T-Mobile. I was on AT&T my first few months of owning a cell phone decades ago, and I hated them. And I was like, man, how do I not know what to expect on my bill? Why isn't it just the same bill? And T-Mobile, I haven't had a problem in over 20 years. They will be my company for life. So I get it with that customer lifetime value. How do you scale your own company by going out to meet more of these great companies to work with? So once you have these companies with high lifetime value, how do you meet more of these wonderful companies? How can you grow? And I'm just going to give you an imagination exercise here, right? Because sometimes we know how we can grow, and the biggest thing is like a roadblock. So say you had like a magic wand and you could just destroy the one obstacle that's holding back your company growth. What is that obstacle that's holding you back?
It's meeting with CEOs, CFOs, and heads of HR of these scale ups. I think our close rate on an in-person meeting, like if we tour somebody's site, if we go visit them, it's something like, we conservatively say 70%, but it's really more like 80 or 90.
Yeah.
If we get even a phone call, if we get to meet somebody to talk to them, our close rate on that is, we just looked at it yesterday, it was 60% for the year so far. And so we're like, people resonate with what we say. And we're not great salespeople either, by the way. It's not like we've got all the right things to say in sales and we've got like sales tech. That's not it at all. But we just want to go talk with people about their business.
Yeah.
If we walk into somebody's business and I'm like, Jules, why is the forklift going over here instead of there? I'm like, Jules, why is there an expiration date on this product that's older than the product that's like up above, or down
Yeah.
below? And I'm like, Jules, what do you want to do with the business? What do you want to do another year, 3 years, 5 years? What does your ideal role look like along the way? What do you
Yeah.
want to risk in order to, like, people are like, no recruiter's ever talked to me like that before.
Yeah.
So if we can just get into that conversation with people, they see it. And then we do this prove it deal where we're like, we'll prove it to you. We'll do one search. Let us, you can see our process and how we interact, just, see it. And then once people start to try it, then they're hooked. It's 100%. After that,
Brilliant. Yeah.
over the last 2 years, they're like, once people try it, they're like, all right, I've never experienced anything like this. I want to do it. So that's it. Our path is two different ways. So there is one path that is through recruiting. So we do throughout the entire, with almost every one of our clients, we hire a new CFO, a new VP of HR, sometimes a new CEO. Just as there's at some point during the scale phase where that turns over. And so that gives us access to everybody that does that position. So if we're looking for, we just finished a CFO search for one of our clients here in Phoenix, and that gave us access to all the CFOs in Phoenix. So we call everybody about it. And, they could be a great fit, they could not be a great fit, but one person gets hired into that position, and we probably need another 35 to 40 CFOs along that search. And that's 35 to 40 potential people that we can work with. Either they decide to stay in their existing company and they work with us there, or they join a new company and they're like, hey, Jim, nobody's ever talked to me. Jim's one of our search directors. They're like, Jim, nobody's ever talked to me like that before during my search process. I got to work with you. I just joined this company. Come work with me here.
Yeah.
It's a longer lead generation process. It's a longer cycle in order to get there, but it's the large way that it's predominantly how we've grown to this point. What we're doing a lot more of now is targeted outreach. And so we know our TAM. Our TAM are CEOs, CFOs, VPs of HR of companies that are doing between 50 and 150 million in revenue. That's where we want to start and then grow with them through 500 million. And we can identify all of those people. We have all of their phone numbers and email addresses and all their contact info. So now we market to them directly, send them gifts, send them handwritten cards. That's the cool thing about today's age, like with AI. Like, we love AI and we use it a lot, and we're using it in unique ways. And we're also finding more unique ways to write handwritten cards, to send personalized gifts to people, and just like add that personal touch. I just think it's like it's going away and we're doubling down on it. And so those are kind of the two ways that we've been able to connect with people and grow. And hopefully that'll help us continue to grow into the future.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that, yeah, that personal touch that is like, hey, everybody's doing it this way. What we're going to do is take a little bit more effort and do it this way, and that creates a really beautiful moment. So how do people connect with you? How do they connect with Potere? What's the best way that they can reach out to you?
And there are all sorts of buttons where you can send us an email, and then I'll try and grab that and reach out to you directly. And then the other way, if you want to connect with me directly, I'm on LinkedIn at Potere Nick. And so if you want to find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, be happy to message with you there.
Oh, fantastic. And for all of our viewers and all of our listeners, those links are going to be right down in the podcast notes. You can click those and you can access Nick and you can access Potere. Nick, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks you, Jules. It's been a pleasure.